First, next to me, we have Meryl Poster, who is right now, as Dee said, the president of television for the Weinstein Company. She also spent 16 years before that as the co-president of production at Miramax, doing some of one of my absolute favorite movies, Chicago, in addition to a lot of other amazing films that we all kind of know and have all won Oscars all the time. She's now, as we said, head of television. She's worked on series as like Project Runway. She's spearheaded Mob Wives, in addition to a number of other shows that are in production, and has had a great and amazing career as kind of a legend, I would say, in the entertainment business. And
wow, I'm way too young for that. I don't know.
Not yet. Okay, will be a legend at some point. And then Ninon Marapachi, who, as Dee said, has a very long title, which I will tell you, but it is head of hedge fund origination and product management for Bank of America Merrill Lynch. She basically is helping to manage assets, help steer assets in the order of $15 billion worth of assets. So it is a big job, and it is an important job. And she is a native of Tanzania and has a fascinating story of how she got here. So we'll let her tell a little bit of that. So I want to dive right in with Meryl. You started out very at the bottom. I
started in the mail room at William Morris talent agency.
And a lot of women, I think, especially women, but people in general, have challenges transitioning from the kind of assistant junior roles into more executive roles. So tell us about how you kind of worked your way through entertainment and rose to such a great level.
Well, when I started in the mailroom at William Morris, women didn't start in the mailroom at William Morris. I was the second female to ever work in the mailroom. It used to be, they started as secretaries. So when people ask me about my biggest accomplishment in my career, actually that's really been the biggest accomplishment, was to start there. And I did, I always say to people, it isn't really premeditated on where I went and how I got there or how I reacted. It's really who I am. Mm-hmm. And those core values, the way of thinking is really from my family, from my parents, from my brother, who gave me that strength to be who I was. So I worked in the mailroom only for about 3 months, and I was asked to work for the president of William Morris at the time. And I was just working in the morning because there was another secretary who came in later in the day who worked for him. And I did have an instance where, at that time, it was, women didn't want to serve coffee. As a trainee, I didn't want to serve coffee because I wasn't a secretary. Now it doesn't matter. Now everybody, men, women, it's all the same. It doesn't matter what you do. It's transcended. But at the time, I had to bring him coffee every morning because the cook had just, convenient for me not, had just quit. So I would bring coffee in a cup across. He had this very expansive big office, and I brought it across to him. And it was spilling one time, and he said, oh, you really have to watch it. And I said, well, I don't want to get too good at this. So, it wasn't premeditated that I said that. And he's been dead for a while now, so I can tell the story.
And did you find, was he a mentor to you, or
no,
did you find
he was not.
Leading was what helped you get? And so then you transitioned and you started with Miramax Films.
No, I mean, he mentored me maybe a little bit because I whined to him that I wanted to work on a desk as an assistant, like to be a trainee, instead of doing this for him. So he did put me with a woman who was head of, it was called casting, now it's called talent, who was head of casting at the time. And that was actually, I learned a lot, but she absolutely did not mentor me whatsoever. And that's what the bridge to work for Harvey, where everyone says how difficult it would be to work for someone like him for so long. But in fact, if you worked for someone who never gave you any opportunity, who was only afraid of her own shadow, that's kind of worse, because she never gave me any exposure. She never wanted me to do anything. She never afforded any kind of opportunity whatsoever. So then it was completely the opposite when I went to go work for Harvey, where one time he literally threw me out of the car to go say hello to Barry Levinson at a party. I was like, I can't go, and he's like, pushed me, go. So, there was really both sides I had.
So having an instance where you were really afforded a lot of opportunity to grow and stretch and maybe find new avenues for yourself was very important for your career, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely, and having both of those, the contrasting experiences.
So Ninon, as I was alluding to, your path here, she has this amazing story, which would, Meryl could do a movie about this. We'll get to
I'm
that
only
later.
doing TV now.
Right, sorry, okay. But you really you worked incredibly hard, got amazing scholarships, and really pushed yourself to get to this place. And you now work in an industry, not just within financial services, but particularly in the hedge fund industry. It is very dominated by men. And if there are any women, there are probably almost no women of color.
Right.
So talk to us a little bit about kind of your trajectory to get there and the people that you found to help support you along the way.
Gotcha. Thank you. So as Susan noted, so I've spent my entire career at Bank of America Merrill Lynch. I started there as an intern back in 2001, and really, went back in 2002, started as an analyst. I moved through the ropes very fast from 2001 to 2007. By early 2007, I made director. I was managing a team, and I kind of attribute that back to from the very early on, my strategy essentially has been really making sure that I invest a lot of time at the beginning to make sure that I understand the style of my manager, my boss, right? Because I truly believe that, the ability to understand where you complement, where you are complementing each other, whether, versus you're acting as a substitute for each other, it's actually very important to kind of accomplishing the goals and just working well together. So it's an interesting journey, as you noted. I mean, I'm originally from Tanzania. My parents' combined income is about $3,000 US dollars. So it was really through a number of scholarships that got me here. I point back, if I have to point back to one person, people have asked me, who is one person who actually helped you to get to where you were? And I think it's not really about a person for me, it's about an organization. There's an organization called Sponsors for Education Opportunity, which I am actually on the board of right now. But this organization is an organization that kind of picked me out of Mount Holyoke College, right? Merrill Lynch or Bank of America or Goldman Sachs, all these big financial industries, they don't recruit, they don't go and recruit at non-Ivy League schools. Mount Holyoke College, women college out of South Hadley, Massachusetts, just didn't make the cut. So it's really through the Sponsors for Education Opportunity program, which is a New York-based nonprofit organization, is what kind of recruited me, because it has this program that recruit people of color and specifically women, and kind of we went to place me into a boot camp. It was some sort of like a 2 weeks boot camp that kind of taught me a few things. It's like you have to be goal oriented, you have to be super focused, you have to be super determined, and if you kind of embrace these three attributes, then you'll get what you want. I mean, I took those three attributes, applied them from early on, and was able to always turn my bosses into sponsors. Sponsors defined as someone who advocates for your next opportunity.
That's amazing. And when you talk about style, I would say everybody aspires to that. I don't think it's possible. Well, a lot of us haven't necessarily always been able to turn every boss into a sponsor. When you talk about style and understanding the style of your boss and your own style, do you then think about how you need to adapt your behavior to fit with your boss? Or do you think, okay, I've worked with this person, maybe I need to find somebody else who suits my style a little bit better?
Good question. So for me, it's been about adjusting myself to fit the need of my bosses. Of course, with the primary objective of number one, you got to like what you're doing. So if I love doing the job, now I want to stay in this job, it means, okay, and I want to be able to progress in this particular job, then I have to work with my boss. So it's been a lot of adjusting myself, and thank God, I think I'm flexible enough. It hasn't costed me too much. I was able to kind of navigate and make appropriate changes to kind of make it work, because it really does take that. I was on maternity leave in 2012, out on maternity leave, and then my boss changed. Yeah. And I had to kind of like spend some time figuring out, understanding the new boss, what do I need to do? And I literally went back, and it took some, it was my current boss, who is actually a super still advocate and sponsor is it took some adjustment. It took some investment. It took me maybe like a good 3 months to 6 months to kind of figure it out. There was a lot of like meetings where we just felt like you're like just not hitting each other, right? And like, I'm saying this and saying that, you're not listening to each other. But like I think invested enough time and I felt like I got there. So going back to your question, it's a lot of adjustment on my part, but adjustment that I think were worthwhile, because I want to make sure that at the end of the day, if I have to give someone an advice, I don't think you should make an adjustment if the job is not worth it, right? Like, so at the end of the day, if you don't like the opportunity, if you don't like your job, then you gotta go, right? You gotta move, you gotta make a change. You can't stay in something that's not for you.
That's great, though. I think the whole notion of investing in relationships, the way we think about investing in relationships with friends and loved ones, investing in a relationship with a boss is really important. So, Meryl, when we talk about style of bosses, Harvey Weinstein obviously has a bit of a reputation for being a challenging personality, but you clearly have thrived working there with him, and you went back for a second tour.
Second tour of duty.
Second tour of duty. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you made the relationship work with him, how your styles kind of matched, and how that allowed you to kind of pursue more opportunity within the company?
Well, like I said, he gave me a lot of opportunity. So I'd come from a place where I wasn't given opportunity, and it wasn't. If I could do something, he was only too happy to go to a premiere, to go if I had my own relationships. He wasn't threatened by that. He wanted me to use that to the advantage of the company, which was something very different than what I'd come from. I think that my ability to work with him, and this is probably the most frequently asked question that I've ever received in my entire life, is basically who I am. Mm-hmm. So I always speak the truth, and as my brother said, it's not always the most pleasant thing. But when it's a very valuable commodity for someone who works for you to speak the truth, so that I'm not in fear of coming up against him. Even if it's contrary to how he feels, I still speak the truth. And it's not for my own benefit, it's for the benefit of the company. It was always for the benefit of the company, for the benefit of a film. I would fight with him about what I felt was something better for the film, a casting choice or whatever it was, what I felt was better. And he knew that I had that in mind, which ultimately was beneficial to the company. So that's why our relationship worked so well, was because he knew I had his best interest at heart.
It takes a lot of trust.
It took a lot. Yeah, it takes a lot of trust. But I went to work every day thinking that if I get fired, like that's the worst thing that could happen. I did. I always went to work thinking, okay, if I get fired today, that's the worst that can happen. The reality of what the situation was. So I also had the ability to hire people who worked for me, and I really surrounded myself with a family. And people always talk about the Miramax being a family, that it was a culture of a family. And the people that I hired, I mentored, and worked for me, really, we were all in it together. So that also helped. It wasn't, I think a lot of times in companies, it's harder when there's politics amongst your peers, as opposed to knowing who you're fighting. Yeah. It was very clear, us, him. So it made it a lot easier, because we all work together.
And when you now think about the people that you hire and that you choose to mentor, your employees or other people, I think you gained a new mentee in the green room just earlier today.
I know, I made a new best friend in the green room. Yeah.
Do you look for complementary skills to you? Do you look for people who are also the truth tellers like you are? How do you think about that?
It's an innate feeling. It's chemistry. It's like finding a love connection in some way. It just works. And I don't think that they are necessarily 100% the same. I think that it's got to be somebody. The first thing is loyalty. That's someone who's loyal, and you feel that and you can sense that.
And Ninon, when you think about kind of giving back, as you talk about the organization that's helped you so much, and obviously there aren't a lot of women, and I'm sure that the young women at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch now will see you as a huge role model. How do you think about finding mentees or sponsee, people to sponsor, and what kind of relationship you want to try to build with them?
Sure. So yes, to that point. So you have, in the financial industry, generally speaking, right now, you have few women, which I think you asked that before, and I don't think I actually commented that. Like when I go to hedge fund conferences, it's like number one you find is male and is white ones, right? Like so it's not like it's simple as that, right?
Sea of white men is what she said to me earlier.
All blonde. So going back, finding a mentor. Number one, it's important to have mentors, it's important to have sponsors, because at the end of the day, it's what kind of allow you to kind of move the needle and progress. So my definition as it relates to finding mentors, I truly believe in like a long cultivation period. I don't believe in like going to someone and asking them, hey, can you be my mentor? Because I just don't think it's like you gotta start grabbing coffee and talk and understanding each other, understanding where are the source of like, you know, what that person's value, where you have common interests, where you're not. And then just like it's about, for me, mentors, creation of mentors is really about creating creation of a bunch of relationships, of which, you know when to reach when you have a problem that you think that you need an advice from. So I'll reach out for person A for a very specific advice about, you know, how to fundraise. I'll go to someone else if the topic is different. So you have to have a lot of mentors, and you have to invest a lot of time, which is a function of actually a lot of networking and time commitment. So I truly don't believe in like, hey, can you be my mentor type of thing, because it just is artificial. You find yourself, and I've had those. I mean, they have a number of networks where they say, okay, yeah, we're partnering, like this is your mentor, and you sit down, you're like, you don't even know what to talk about, and those are just artificial. So I don't believe in artificial kind of partnership. You need to create. It's about, you know, I think Meryl noted this. It's like you have to find. It's about creation. It's about identification of that chemistry. So that's on mentors. Sponsors, someone who would advocate for your next opportunity. This one is like you gotta push a little bit harder. It's not about, you may need to actually go and push for someone to be your sponsor, because at the end of the day, you are asking for someone to go and sit on the table and advocate for you. So you need that person. You need to make sure that you are clear on who those people are. Who are your sponsors? And do they know enough about you to be able to kind of sit on the table and bang that table and say, you know what? This person got to be promoted because this is where their strengths are and this is where their weaknesses are. So you really need, like, I believe that you have to go and like you need to know these are my sponsors, and you need to make sure that they know that they have to be your sponsor and what their role need to be as it relates to progress you from point A to B.
Right, so a sponsor is a much deeper level of engagement that you're asking from this person versus just a mentor who's kind of meeting and helping with you. So I would say to both of you, when you think about the people that have helped you and encouraged you through your careers, have you looked outside of your industries, and have there been people outside of your industries that have been instrumental in just giving you business advice or sort of general career advice? Or has it really been more targeted?
You can take that first.
It's for me, it's all over the map. It's you know, I get the most out of the box kind of thinking from mentors who are outside my organization. So at the end of the day, to answer your question, is like I have mentors and mentors inside my organization, within the financial industries, and outside the financial industry. Because at the end of the day, whenever I'm thinking about solving various problems, you know, some like if I want to know about like, okay, I need to raise assets, right? That's about fundraising, and it doesn't need to be, I don't need to talk to someone within the financial industry. I can literally consult with Dee, right? Like she has, you know, so it's like I leverage my husband a lot, who is an entrepreneur, like, and I get a lot of like, kind of like out of the box thinking, out of the box ideas from a person who is not thinking, you know, the same way I think, which is from the industry that I don't belong.
Right, great.
I've used my brother. I've said this before. My brother's my secret weapon. And he used to do my homework for me. He's 3 years older than me. He went to an Ivy League college. I did not. And he was always my secret weapon. He's very famous. He won a Grammy. He's a music supervisor.
Oh.
And he does not do things like this. But I use him. But in the past year, I have gone out of, Harvey, has been my mentor for a long time. But I have gone out because now I'm seeing there's more different areas, because I've gotten out of film and been in television where it's more business and different technology. So now it's forced me to go out and seek some mentorship because the business has changed.
Changing.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, we're going to open it up for questions.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm Trinette. Hi, Meryl. You
Trinette.
spoke earlier. Just more of a comment, actually, about bosses. I think that one great way to be successful in your career that a lot of women don't really understand when they're starting out is that when you're working for a male boss, that person's obviously more powerful than you in that general sense, but that they really respect like directness and somebody who's self-confident and who has a strong personality. I know for myself, I work for the CFO of a large firm, and he's so intimidating, probably like Harvey is, but once you like strip that away and get to know him, he's like the easiest person to talk to, and he's like a great advocate. But it really comes down to the fact that I think he likes me because I speak my mind,
Right.
but he totally does not like other people because they don't.
Right.
So I think that you shouldn't be afraid to just be yourself and go in there and be as opinionated as you need to be, as long as it's serving the firm and serving your purpose well.
Great.
I agree with that.
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you. We had just over here. She had an early hand up. I want to make sure she got.
Thank you, ladies. Question about how women can better communicate to one another. I think as bosses, we as women, when we give constructive feedback as a younger woman, I want to be able to receive that and to trust that the constructive feedback I'm being given is to build me up and not to keep me in my place. So I think there's still some dynamics of girl-on-girl crime or woman-on-woman crime. And so how can we as women just love each other better and communicate in a way that empowers? How have you done that?
Meryl.
I don't think that nicely necessarily empowers a woman. I have to be honest.
Not nice, constructive. Not nice.
I had an assistant who would say to me every time I'd ask her to do something, she would say to me, "No problem, no problem." And I said to her, "I know it's no problem. You're my assistant, and I asked you to do this for me, and I know you're going to do it." I said, "I don't understand what no problem means." So I said, take that out of your. Don't say to me no problem, because I know it's no problem. I know you're going to do it. And I think that's constructive. And she did go on to, she's gone on, we didn't, she didn't leave, it evolved the way that she left. There's nothing to it with the way she left. And she said to me, I really did help her. I used to say that to her. Or, I didn't grow up with the internet. So I didn't have an answer in 2 seconds to something. And that works two ways. I find that the younger I can't believe, I'm like an elder statesman sitting here, I'm a legend. That they would say, I know I'm a legend. So I'm me and Clint Eastwood. And so oftentimes they immediately don't find the answer on the internet and say, I don't know. Sometimes they'll come back with an answer or 2 seconds later. And I said, don't come back to me in 2 seconds with an answer. I don't need the answer in 2 seconds. I need you to think about it, and I need you to really look at, I didn't have that, as I said, I didn't have the luxury of the internet. So I needed to think about it, I need to process it, and that's what I want you to do, even though you can get an immediate yes or no. I don't need immediate yes or no. So I might not sugarcoat the way that I'm saying all this, and I don't. But I've had extraordinary relationships with people that have worked for me, and they have gone on to extraordinary success. And I absolutely know that I'm a part of that and the training that I've told them. And there's another thing that I always say to someone who works for me is that every day you should be sitting there thinking, shit, I forgot something. What did I forget? I didn't do something. I didn't do, always have that feeling instead of being so contented in the role.
Always reaching.
So I'll comment on that. So being in financial industry is a little bit different. When I started on
there are no women to have
it's like there's no women. So it's like you can't, to thrive in there, you need to be able to to be treated like a man.
Right.
Right? Like, so you can't, there's no stuff. Everybody who wanted to be treated differently, it's not there. Simply as that. Right? On the equity trading floor, there was 500 people. This is when I started, 500 people in there, and there are like 3 women. Right? In the hedge fund industry, it's like there's just no women, no people of color. So it's just like, what I personally learned from the very beginning was, if I ever get a criticism, I assume that the other person is right, right? And it's the only way to win. Like if you assume that, if someone comes to you and say, well, you did that thing not the right way, whatever, if you actually take it to heart and say, if I assume that they're right, I'm going to fix it. And by you trying to fixing it, it means you're always going to be better and deal with kind of more of these issues. So instead of you battling and be like, yeah, is it true? No, I don't. I think that presentation, if somebody said that presentation was not good, you did not present well, you're like, okay, you just say like, they're right. Then you're going to aspire to fixing. But if you start battling, no, I think it was good, and it's just not worth it. Right? So
not being defensive when people are criticizing.
Right, I agree with that. Definitely,
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
Okay, I think we can have time for one more question if there is a yes down here.
My question is, you talk a lot about sponsors and mentors. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're starting your own business, you're not working in a company. So how do you have access to build let me rephrase that. How do you continue on that relationship?
Yeah.
Because people are busy and they're working and they're not necessarily, you're not around them. So to continue I've had experiences where I've met with people, but then just to continue that ongoing relationship, and then it's like you want results sooner, but it's like taking a long time, and just like.
At the end of the day, you have to be a little bit patient. Like, so going back, your entrepreneur, it's like, it reminds me of my husband because he's an entrepreneur, and we are like a mentor and a sponsor to each other, like constantly every day. And he just like go there. I mean, he networked like crazy, right? You have to have your hit ratio. You need to figure out what's your hit ratio. Like out of 10 people you talk to, how many turns out into a constructive something? I would say it's about 20%. So you have to hit a lot more people. You have to like be very proactive, and you need to be very bold into just really trying to get in front of people and making sure that but be clear on what you need out of people.
Right. I agree with that.
Be very clear, because there's like you
I'd like an informative interview and hear about your career in the business.
It's like if you have it. Whenever you go to a meeting, be goal-oriented. Like, have an expected outcome in your mind. So whenever you go to a meeting, for me, like, the definition is like, whenever I go to a meeting, I'd be like, I said it before. Like, I define it. It's like, for me, this meeting, success means X, failure means Y. Like, I define that before I go to a meeting. So when I get out of the meeting, I know that was a failure because I already, right? Like, it's just because I defined that before. Right? And it just go like as you do things every day. I think my big strategy is like because I'm very goal oriented, like that's just big definition. Like every single day I want to be at the beginning of the day, I'll be like, at the end of this day, success means X, failure means Y. At the end of this month, success means X, failure means Y. The end of this year, same. So I mean, a lot of people just kind of move without a plan, which is just, I think, is dangerous.
Great. Okay, I think we actually need to wrap up. But just to recap, we talked about investing in relationships, finding places where you can get a lot of opportunity, people who will give you enough running room, potentially looking outside as your business starts to transform and finding people who can support you from the outside, and really cultivating very carefully your sponsors and mentors. Does that sound like a good summary of our conversation? Great.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, guys.